okay. It's really only myself and Laura who'll be speaking, all be in vision. So Laura and I just wait until there's a few more people in, and then we will begin the session. I think we've got a couple more in now. Yeah. Still a wee bit to go yet. It's not quite 11 o'clock, so I'll give people a chance to get in. There's a few wee housekeeping bits and bobs, but I'll go through those whenever we've got a few more people in. Never thought I'd actually be featuring in the Errigal Arts Festival, Laura. I don't know about you.
No, I don't think so.
Given I think between us, I don't know. You've more creative talent than I have. I have absolutely zero. So I never thought that I would be certainly. So it's a great opportunity, and I suppose one of the positives coming out of the crazy times we're living in, that we can do things like this. And Errigal have obviously worked hard to create their online festival this year, which from everything we're hearing is that it's going really well, which is great. So
it is. Lots of good quotes coming out from the survey.
Yes. We're lucky enough we work with Errigal and Thrive to do their audience survey for their festival every year. So obviously slightly different this year with the online offering. But it's going to be really interesting, I think, just to see how people feel about the online versus the usual, way it's been before, and then what that means for going forward. So no doubt, interesting times we're living in, that's for sure.
Definitely.
See a few more coming in there now. You see some of the we've a good spread across the northwest, both from the Donegal side and also the Derry and Strabane side as well, which is great. So we'll just give people another couple of minutes. I'm conscious that some people may have registered and now can't make it this morning, but I don't want to we'll just wait another couple of minutes, if I can ask for your patience, and then we'll go through this. Another few I see have come in. Another minute or so. I don't think people are having problems with the tech or anything. I think just waiting a couple of minutes for people to come in.
Oh, sorry.
Went straight to the end, Laura.
Yeah,
There,
whoops.
giving away the
Skipped
punchline. Giving away the punchline. What's your party piece for the festival? God, Jane. I don't know that I have a party piece. Laura, what's your party piece for the
No,
festival?
nothing here.
you play an instrument, don't you?
Just the flute and piano, but not great at either.
There you go. If this doesn't go well with the audience insight, we may ask you to get the flute out and give us a nice tune. I'm afraid my party pieces are confined to the shower, and that's the best place for them, where nobody can hear me or see me.
Hey, good acoustics.
I do the odd bit of poetry, but that's about it. Okay, I make it 5 past. Laura, what do you have?
Yeah, that's...
Okay, so I think we'll start, and people can join us as they go along, and it is being recorded, so we'll make a start. So some of you may have heard of After the Interval before now, some of you may not. So I'll just do a quick summary. The survey was developed in partnership between ourselves and Thrive, and as many of you will know, we're based in Belfast, but we work right across Northern Ireland and indeed with some of the organisations in the Republic of Ireland, helping cultural organisations to talk to their audiences and use that insight. So Thrive has worked with Indigo in the past. Katy Raines would be an associate of Thrive, and Katy's based in England, but again does work over here as well. And there was a feeling between us that as COVID-19 was emerging and developing, that at some point we would need to talk to our audiences. So we'd all gone into lockdown, all our cultural organisations and cultural venues had to stop their activity for all the public health reasons that we know. But we felt that at some point there would be a need to talk to audiences about how we would find our way back. Because closing things is one thing, reopening them again when we're still in the middle of this public health pandemic is obviously very, very challenging. So between us, Thrive and Katy came up with a survey, and that survey has been running now in 2 different versions. So we did an initial version in sort of May, June time, and that was to establish some baseline questions and to get an initial sense from audiences. And then we've updated the survey, which we're now calling Act 2. And Act 2 then went out between the 15th of June and the 3rd of July. Now, Act 2 asks some of the same questions as Act 1, which we'll kind of refer to as we go through. But Act 2 then, because of the time that it went out, lockdown was starting to, if not be eased, certainly be talked about easing, both in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland. And so we were able to go into a bit more detail about social distancing, about online content. So a bit more then of the sort of things that were coming out that we knew audiences would be wondering about or have views or opinions about. And also, I suppose, the challenges that you guys working in cultural venues were trying to meet as well. So today's research is from 3,900 responses across about 17 cultural organisations. I say some in the Republic, some in Northern Ireland, but interestingly, not a huge difference in what audiences were telling us in the 2 areas. So we brought the data together. If we thought there was huge differences, we would have pointed those out, but there aren't. So this data will hopefully be of interest to you, whether or not you were one of the organisations that took part, or whether you're just an organisation wrestling with the challenges around reopening, or indeed whether you're working in one of the councils, and again, just interested to see what this data is. So how it's going to work today is, in a moment I'll be quiet and hand over to Laura. Laura will talk you through the actual insight and the information. And as we're going along, if you have any questions, which you may well have, just pop them and write them into the Q&A part of the buttons down at the bottom. So the Q&A is there for you to give your question and say who you are, which is good to know. And then when Laura has finished doing her presentation and I've sort of wrapped things up at the end of the formal presentation, but we will do the Q&A and we will attempt to answer as many of the questions as we can. Now, if it turns out that there are questions we can't answer, we'll endeavour to find out the answers and get back to you at least. But we will certainly try to answer the questions around the research. So hopefully that kind of gives you an introduction. And now I'm going to hand over to Laura, and Laura will take you through the survey. And I think Laura's going to do that whilst not being in vision. So Laura's going to turn off her camera. I'll turn my camera off and mute myself as well, so you're not distracted by me. And I will let you, Laura, work away now and communicate the findings of after the interval. Thank you.
That's grand. Well, thank you so much, Margaret. So hello, everyone. My name is Laura Cusick, and I'll be walking you through the results of Act 2 of our survey. I'm just going to stop the video so you don't have to look at me and you can actually focus on all of the data. Okay. Oops. Apologies there. Right, so first we wanted to find out if people were actively booking tickets for live cultural events. The answer for this is no. Most audiences still aren't booking for live events just yet. And the result here is consistent with Act 1 of our research. Next, we wanted to get a better picture of what types of events people are booking for and when these events are happening. While a small portion of people are booking for summer events, most people are booking for events September or later, and that adds up to 79% of audiences. And of the different types of events being booked, the most popular events are rock or pop concerts, theater or dance performances, comedy events, and outdoor events. It then makes sense that over half of audiences booking now for events are booking at theaters and music venues. However, given that these are indoor venues, there's still a question of what will happen with these types of events. Next, we wanted to look at people's expectations of the live events. The majority of people who are currently booking expect the events to go on ahead. Nearly half, 47%, expect the event to take place, but under restricted capacities and other measures. Next, what about the audiences who aren't booking events just yet? What we found was that nearly 2/3 of audiences won't feel ready to book until at least 3 months from now. This is also consistent with what we saw in Act 1 of the survey. Most people prefer to wait a few months before booking for events. Next, we wanted to find out about people's attitudes towards coming back to live events. Nearly 3/4 of audiences would consider coming back to live cultural events in general. Of those, 58% of audiences will specifically return to a venue once they feel confident that measures have been put in place. A much smaller percent of audiences would wait to attend. These audiences were more likely to self-identify as being vulnerable to COVID. Next, we wanted to find out what would make audiences feel more comfortable coming back to live events. First, we looked at different purchasing options to see if specific options would encourage people to book tickets. We found that more than 1/3 of audiences prefer a full refund or credit in the event of a cancellation or if they were unable to attend. The data shows that audiences want peace of mind knowing that if something were to happen, the venue would still support them by giving them a refund or a credit. Next, we wanted to look at what types of social distancing measures audiences want at venues. We found that audiences would be more likely to attend if they could sit together as a household, but still want to be socially distanced from other parties. They also want to see limits on attendance, and they also care about performers and artists. They want to be reassured that they are being kept safe. Audiences were less enthusiastic about daytime performances and unreserved seating. In regards to avoiding contact with people, queue management and scheduled arrival times are important to audiences, and they are also keen that staff wear masks. Audiences, however, were less likely to want to take public transport to the event, which may possibly be related to the level of exposure to other people in a confined space. In regards to hygiene, audiences want to see things to feel safe. They want to see hand sanitizer available, they want to see well-publicized venue cleaning procedures, and want to see a kite mark so that they can be reassured that venues are abiding by certain standards. What they don't want to see are restrictions on toilet facilities. That would make them less likely to attend live events. Next, we wanted to find out if audiences were engaging with cultural events online. The answer is yes. Just over half of all audiences have engaged with cultural events online. While 19% of audiences were already engaging with cultural events online prior to the lockdown, a greater percent of audiences are new, having engaged with online cultural events only since the lockdown has started. Of those who have engaged with cultural activity online, most have either watched full-length productions or performances by artists created at home. Online engagement wasn't limited to just attendance, however. A quarter of audiences participated in a creative activity online. It's also encouraging to see that 31% of audiences had made a donation to watch an online performance. This shows that audiences do value cultural activity online and want to support cultural organizations. In our own version of the survey, we asked an additional question to find out where the online content was produced. Audiences consumed online content from local, GB, ROI, and international cultural providers, showing the opportunity online offers. However, it's also a crowded marketplace. Next, we wanted to find out if audiences would be interested in engaging with cultural events online in the future. We found that yes, more than 3/4 of audiences would be interested in cultural events online. Of those who aren't interested, the vast majority say they're simply not an attractive alternative to live events. If you look at the size of the gray bars here on the right, you'll see that it's not really about the tech, the quality of events, or the range of events to choose from. It's not even about being too busy to engage online. The online experience just can't compare to the experience of live events. Next, we wanted to see what types of online events people would be interested in. Most audiences are interested in watching a performance crafted specifically to be watched online. Audiences were less interested in recordings and archived events. And when you look at the types of events that are on offer, there is little difference in the intent to watch them, regardless of being able to attend in person. This means that their interest in watching the event online is based on the type of content, not on it being a substitute for attending a live event. We also looked at audiences' expectations of online events. While audiences understand that they will be different and can still be a satisfying experience, it won't be as good as a live event. Audiences are also less interested in engaging with other people on social media during and after performances. Next, we wanted to see if people would be willing to pay for cultural events online. The answer is yes. 65% of audiences would be willing to pay for online cultural events. However, when you look at the breakdown of responses on the right, just 10% are willing to pay the same price as an event in a venue, while a staggering 55% would be willing to spend less. This means that audiences aren't willing to spend quite as much on online events compared to events in a venue. This makes sense given their previous responses about how the online experience doesn't compare with attending a live event. Because people say they'll pay less for online, one thought here is to get more people to watch, as you're not constrained by physical capacity. However, given the crowded marketplace and the costs involved with producing cultural content online, there's no simple answer. Here we wanted to see if people's willingness to pay differed by the type of online content. It's fairly consistent. As you can see from the dark blue bars, audiences would prefer to pay less for online content than for a live event. This largely stays true regardless of the type of event it is, such as a live event, recording, or archive footage. Next, we wanted to learn more about audiences' experience with outdoor arts events. Have they attended them in the past? Yes, nearly 8 in 10 people have attended an outdoor arts event in the past. And of those who have attended, 76% have gone to both free and paid for events. Next, we wanted to find out if audiences would be interested in engaging with cultural events outdoors. Most audiences are open to attending outdoor cultural events. Of those who are not interested in outdoor events, most cited the weather or being required to stand. The lack of facilities and inability to enforce social distancing measures are also seen as barriers to engagement. Next, of those who are interested in attending outdoor events, we asked what types of events they would like to attend. It's not surprising that most audiences would be interested in taking the indoor experience outdoors. The most popular types of outdoor events people would like to attend are open-air theater or musical concerts. There is also interest in drive-in and countryside events, but to a slightly lesser extent. Next, we wanted to see if people would be willing to pay for cultural events outdoors. The answer is yes. More than 3/4 of audiences would be willing to pay for an outdoor event. Audiences appear much more willing to pay for outdoor events compared to online events. This is evidenced by the chart here on the right. Over half of audiences would be happy to pay similar prices for outdoor events as they would for an event in a venue. That's 5 times higher than for online events, where only 10% of audiences on average would be willing to pay the same price. This suggests that people are willing to pay similar prices for a similar type of live experience. Next, we wanted to look at how this differed by type of outdoor event. More than 2/3 of audiences would pay the same price as a ticket for the two most popular event types, musical performances or theater. Next, we wanted to find out what audiences thought about the future of cultural organizations. We found that audiences are very concerned about the financial survival of cultural organizations. It's also positive that audiences are willing to spend about the same amount on cultural events as they did before the pandemic, and not less, especially when you consider that 25% of audiences saw their incomes reduced due to COVID. However, the statistic may change as we enter a period of higher unemployment or recession as the year continues. We also asked audiences to tell us any other thoughts they may have about coming back to cultural events. Audiences continue to show the love they have for the sector, and they recognize and value how arts and culture contribute to our well-being. They stated lovely things like, "I want to help support the arts whatever way I can during this difficult time," and "Arts are key to emotional and mental well-being of individuals and areas." Audiences had also voiced their support of different formats of cultural events. They said things like, "I hope to return to events, but I'm happy to try alternatives." Others have clarified, saying that they are open to online events, but would consider it more for short performances only, or would pay less than for a normal event except where it was live. One person viewed online cultural events as a positive, saying that it would encourage them to be more adventurous and see a wider range of new things. This last section of our presentation focuses on what our audiences look like. In regards to age, more than half of cultural audiences here are 55 or older. Respondents were also more likely to be very engaged, having attended live cultural events more than 4 times in the past year. This makes sense as we instructed our participating organizations to send a survey to their more recent engaged attenders. And while 15% of audiences here have a disability, nearly twice as many people consider themselves to be vulnerable to COVID. It's also worth noting that of the attenders who have a disability, 75% consider themselves also to be vulnerable. This all means that we need to be mindful of our reopening strategies and have procedures in place to make sure disabled and vulnerable audiences aren't left behind. We also dug deeper into the data and found some similarities among the disabled and vulnerable audiences. First, we saw that they were slightly less engaged than the average attender. They attend live events less often, and they're also less likely to engage in cultural events either online or outdoors. This, however, was for different reasons. For disabled attenders, the lack of facilities was a barrier to attending. For vulnerable attenders, the lack of social distancing enforceability was more of a barrier, which makes sense given their situation. However, the good news is that roughly half of both groups would still consider attending live cultural events, so long as they were confident that social distancing and hygiene measures were put in place. This means that you shouldn't disregard these groups of audiences. They will attend, but may just have some specific needs that you'll need to be mindful of. So, what are those needs? Vulnerable attenders want information and assurances around hygiene. They want to see things that will keep them safe, like hand sanitizer, information on cleaning procedures, and a kite mark of safety. While it may be difficult for organizations to do certain things like requiring masks, it's not difficult to give audiences information on health and safety. By providing information on how you're keeping your audiences and staff safe, you'll be helping all of your audiences to feel more comfortable about, about attending, not just those who are vulnerable. Disabled attenders are more likely to want refunds in the event that they are unwell or are unable to attend. This makes sense as they may have underlying health issues, making it difficult to be sure about attending an event. Disabled attenders are also more inclined to book tickets if they can do so in groups. This is in line with our previous research on cultural audiences in the Northwest, where we found that disabled audiences prefer to attend in groups, as they sometimes need a carer or family member to attend with them. Disabled audiences were asked specifics about what was most important to them when returning to live cultural events. What was most important was having priority access if there is a queue system. Some people won't be able to stand or walk for long periods of time. This includes the elderly, people with mobility issues, and also those with autism. Next, audiences wanted confidence that accessible toilets will still be available. As one person wrote, please consider disabled patrons when you're planning for the future. Toileting facilities are an essential, not a luxury. Lastly, people wanted confidence that accessible seating will still be included in social distancing arrangements. And remember, accessible seating isn't just confined to those with a visible disability. For instance, people with hearing difficulty may want the opportunity to select a seat closer to the front or to a speaker so that they can hear better. And those with autism may want a seat closer to the aisle or to an exit so that they have the opportunity to move to a quieter space. If you'd like more information on how to work with disabled audiences, we have a Welcoming Disabled Audiences Toolkit, which you can download for free from the resources section of our website, wewillthrive.co.uk. And if you'd like some advice on how to improve your accessibility, we also have free audience appointments available and can do online audits with a focus on access. Next, Margaret will be walking you through some of our key messages.
Okay, thank you, Laura. I have to say, every time I see this presentation, and I've seen Laura go through it now a number of times, different things jump out at me. So there's a huge amount there, and it will be available. It is currently available on the Thrive website. So as Laura said, www.wewillthrive.co.uk. So I would suggest that if you've seen it and you think, oh gosh, I'd like to go back over it, please download it from there. If you want to share it with colleagues, obviously please do. The slides are deliberately fairly self-explanatory for you to be able to do that. While I'm going through these key messages, I would encourage you, if you have any questions, just pop them into the Q&A, and once I finish doing this key messages, we will have a look at the questions. If there are no questions, that's fine. There doesn't have to be questions. I suppose the key messages are that, people do want to come back to particularly live events. Yes, people recognize online, but it's a different experience. It's a different thing. They still miss that shared experience, that joy of being at a live event where the performer, the musician, the actor, whoever it is in close proximity to them, and that they can share that joy with the others in the audience. But public health is still a major concern. And so you've seen there that people absolutely need to know that things are going to be as safe as they possibly can be. I think what was interesting is when this was in the field, the whole discussion and debate around masks hadn't really emerged as strongly as it has done over the past couple of weeks. both in terms of what's happening in GB, Northern Ireland, and then again in the Republic of Ireland. And obviously there's quite a lot of differences across the various nations. But certainly, again, thinking about who's going to be wearing masks within your venue. Some people are exempt from wearing masks. So again, making sure that if people are coming into your venue wearing masks and yet they're seeing others not wearing masks, being kind of clear in terms of signage about why that is, and being open about the fact that, well, some people are exempt. As Laura referenced there, in terms of audiences, disabled audiences, I think there's a lot of talk at the moment, which many of you will have seen, about disabled people feeling quite left behind, not only during lockdown, but I think as lockdown eases. And again, you know, trying to take all that into account as you would normally have been doing pre-COVID, but it adds an extra layer of thought and of questions that you may need to ask yourselves. Again, on the mask front, I've seen now a number of clear masks being promoted for sale. So again, for those who rely on facial expressions, lip reading, etc., those clear masks for even some of your staff might be an option that will also help when you're at the point of reopening. So there's an awful lot for people to consider as they reopen their venues and organisations. And I think if we had any overriding message from Thrive, it would be about communications. We always say communication with your audience is important. You know that, we know that, but never more so. And I suppose what we've been asking is, or what we're suggesting is, that you are maybe communicating in a slightly different way. So rather than, you know, all the work going on in the background and you go, ta-da, here's the show, what we're actually saying is that organizations that are communicating about the challenges and about what you're trying to do are actually, that's being very well received by organizations. So there's a couple of organizations, Home in Manchester is one that sticks out, and they've done a lot of communications with their audiences. And they've basically said, we don't have all the answers yet. We can't bring you back in until it's safe. And here's some of the things that we're struggling with. So they've been really open and honest with their audiences about what they've been trying to meet the challenges of. And audiences have responded really positively to that, because they've recognized that, oh, it's not maybe as easy as it looks. And yes, we can see that you're trying. I know also that Home have now started to do panels with some of their audiences to test out and think about some of these ideas and challenges to enable them to reopen. And certainly we're looking at running some panels with some organizations here. And if anyone wanted to talk to us about doing that, we'd be more than happy to help support you to talk to your audiences. But I cannot overemphasize the importance of communication at this time. And I know you don't want to bombard people, but actually with so much out there, so much confusion in some areas, people really would value hearing from you about what you and your teams are trying to do to help to get them back into your venue. There's a little video here, and I'm just conscious that we haven't tested the video, so I don't know if it'll work. But there's a video here, and we can send it round to you all afterwards, which is probably maybe the safest thing to do. This video is from a museum in the Netherlands, and they were reopening. And instead of creating a video that felt very much like a public health information video, they've created a video that is creative and has a lot of humor about it. So again, and I'm not suggesting for 1 second you all have the money to go out and produce videos like this, but even if you're thinking about your email communication, try to make it chatty and interesting and, you know, a nice warm tone with it, because there's a lot of fear about COVID-19 still, of course there is. So try not to make it sound like it's going to be scary coming back to your venue. Try to make it sound like it's still going to be the welcoming, warm, enjoyable experience that it was pre-COVID, even if we do have to have these various health measures in place. So we'll send that round. I did, however, see a fantastic thing on Twitter last night, which was somebody had put up in their theatre their instructions for hand washing, and it was, wash your hands like you're the queen and you've just asked your husband to kill the rightful king and now you can't get the blood out of your hands. So clearly somebody trying to put that up in their venue, a reference to the Scottish play, as you will all know, but just again, a kind of humorous, creative way of getting across the important public health messages, but not making it feel scary or off-putting for audiences. So I would definitely say, you know, think about your comms. In terms of other resources on the Thrive website, we've also produced 27 things to consider when welcoming your audiences back. And again, it's sort of turning the information from after the interval into like a practical checklist. And again, it can just be a document that can be downloaded from the website that you can use as you're having conversations with your teams to say, oh, did we think about that? Oh, right, how are we going to do that? So it doesn't give you all the answers, but it will certainly help you, hopefully, to ask the right questions. As I've said, Thrive's going to keep talking to audiences, and we're going to keep helping you to do that. And we absolutely, if there's any areas in particular you think that Thrive could help the sector to look at as we move through this, then just get in touch with myself, with Laura, with any of us. All our emails are available on the Thrive website, and I know some of you know us already anyway, to see if there's any way we can help you as individual organisations, or indeed working collectively across maybe your council areas or across particular art forms. But we would absolutely encourage you where you can to keep talking to your audiences. So we can move on to the next slide. So in terms of questions, I'm not seeing any questions at the minute coming through on the Q&A. So that's fine. I don't know if there's anything anybody wants to say in the chat. I don't want to keep people here because we're all really busy if there aren't lots of questions. As I say, Laura, myself, Claire Rose, we're all available for questions or comments afterwards. All the information plus additional resources is on our Thrive website. We work with many of you in different other projects anyway, so if there's anything that comes up and you want to ask us, then please do. I would like to thank, on behalf of Thrive, Errigal Arts Festival for giving this opportunity. Also Donegal County Council and Derry City and Strabane District Council. Thrive have been working with both those councils and with cultural partners in those areas on the Northwest Audience Development Project. So as part of that, then we were given this opportunity at the Errigal Arts Festival to be able to present the insights from after the interval. I hope you found it useful. I hope you will take something out of that information to use it in your own work. And we in Thrive look forward to helping you all meet the challenges around audiences that have never been easy, but that certainly are increasing as we go through this pandemic. I hope you all have a nice weekend when it finally comes. And thank you very much for allowing us to present the information here to you today. All the best. Bye.